Good day, students. Thank you for meeting up with me and then having time to look up this subject. We are looking at managing change, and then the focus for today is preparation for the exam. So now we need to look at few things that we need to prepare. And then I'm not saying that we should neglect everything that we have covered in our notes, but these are some of the important topics that we are going to cover. So now let's see what is entailed in for us. Okay, the crucial topics are like system development life cycle. Okay, we need to know what is SDLC. And we are also going to look now at information security and data protection. And then we are going to look at system investigations and information systems implementation, or called TECI. And we're also going to look at change management within businesses, and we are also going to look at the recovery systems. And lastly, we are going to look at the structures, behavior, and interaction diagrams. Okay, now let's get into it. I'm sure everybody knows what SDLC is. Okay, system development life cycle. When we are developing systems, we understand that we have different types of methods or methodologies that we look into, and then it's up to a developer to know which one to follow. Okay, now we are looking into how does SDLC fit into managing change. Okay, we need to know that managing change is just a change that comes in, like we are into IT. When you are developing a system, how does the change reflect upon when within systems when we have a new change that comes in? Now, having SDLC as a methodology, now we need to understand, okay, SDLC is known as the creating or altering of information system following a specified model or series of steps. We understand that system development lifecycle is made up of 5 steps, okay? Where we need to evaluate, and then we need to maintain the systems, and then we need to cycle. That's why it's called a life cycle, okay? Now we also need to now discuss what the information securities, okay? What are the information securities? Normally, when we are developing a system, we need to secure our systems. Now, how can we secure our information, for example, or how can we secure our systems? Okay, methods for securing the information such as cryptography. We have what we call cryptography, whereby we use authentication of information. Okay, we authenticate information by cryptography. Okay, and another way of protecting data is by different methods such as logical methods and then physical methods. For example, if you assign usernames such as usernames, password, and user roles, you can protect your data. For example, like in even for example, if you are storing or saving a file within your memory stick, you can assign a password to it, and no one can able to open that certain file. Okay, so we just need to look at different types of information technology on how we can secure our data and information. Okay, looking into system investigations. What are these? What is meant by system investigations? What is meant by just a way of finding first-hand information after the change was implemented. Remember, we are into this subject, managing change, and then we are looking at how we can manage the change once new change or new developments comes within our businesses or comes within our systems. Remember, even when we are in companies, we can have old systems and then maybe it's outdated, and then instead of updating it or implementing a new system, we can either buy a new system, and then once a new system comes in within the business, there is a lot of change, whereby we look at how the end users are going to react with the new system because they were used to the old system. So we need to look at all those changes that reflect on end users. Okay, we have methods that we use in system investigation where we need to understand, especially you students, you need to understand the pros and the cons of this new system investigation. So now when we are looking at the system investigation, this is when now we have new developments of a new system, for example. So now we would need to understand how the end users are feeling about it, about the new change. So now we use methods such as interviews, questionnaires, observations, and sampling records. Okay, so now those are the 4 methods that we can use: interviews, questionnaires, observation, and sampling records. So now understand them and then get to know their pros and their cons. Okay, so now information systems implementations, or we can call it a call techie. In our previous notes we discussed what is a call techie, and I believe you have understood it better there. Okay, implementation. This is when we are trying to construct or implement a new system. Okay, we look at the time involved in learning about new strategies and redesigning courses, for example. And we also look at the concerns about ensuring that students are taught important content. Okay, that is now when it comes to academics. Okay, so now we also now look at the concerns about students' reaction to an unfamiliar teaching method and the impact on student courses evaluation. Okay, remember these are just examples. Now we are referring to the academic system. For example, if we have a new change for a new academic method, like in most of the universities, like in IUM now, we have a learning management system, and then we have a blackboard. Now let's say we start only lecturing through blackboard and then this learning management system, where we are taking off these contact lessons, like no more approach of a lecturer coming into a class. So now we are just going to meet on maybe on WhatsApp group for our class. How would you guys feel? You, of course, how are you going to react to those new changes? Okay, so now there is a lot of always new concerns. Okay, we also look at the concerns that the different strategy will not work as well. Probably the new innovation that you are trying to come up with, it will not work, or it will not improve the whole productivity of the way you think things would be. All right. Okay, we also look at the issues of incentives, the various factors which might encourage or discourage national decision makers from their adoption. When you are talking of adoption, it's like when you're adopting in the new changes, trying to eliminate the old way. Okay, so now maybe the decision makers, like the policy makers, like let me say in universities, those university decision makers, now they will also now look at how are they going to be discouraged or encouraged to come up with a new development. So now those are the changes we are always talking about. Okay, so now we need to understand how we can manage now these new changes within businesses. Okay, first of all, we need to understand management change as a definition. Okay, it can be applied to situations such as downsizing, growing organizations, or even adding new technology. It's also understood as an organizational process aimed at helping employees to understand, commit to, and accept and embrace changes in their current business environment. Also, a part of change management is also managing transition, and though related, change and transition is not the same thing. Okay, so now that is a little bit part of a managing change definition, whereby we are trying to make employees understand to the current change. Okay, and then they should be able to adapt, and then they should be able to embrace with the new change. Okay, so those are some of the things when we need to deal with. Looking at the recovery systems, what are recovery systems? When we are talking of recovery, systems, they are ought to be maintained, and then systems, they are they are part of artificial intelligence, whereby they are human-made things. So basically, they are not 100% that they will work effectively every day. So now what happens if some data is lost, or system goes blank, or something just happens, an error just appears? And then that's when we call in the maintenance. Sometimes you go through system and they'll say, no, sorry, it's going through maintenance. I'm sure you have experienced that with banking systems. Now we need to have what we call recovery systems. We need to always have a backup plan on how we can recover in case of such things happens. Okay, recovery plans should be documented in the same way as a system documentation. Data should always be backed up, as I was just saying, including copies of the softwares. Always, we should always back up our data. Copies must be held on and off site all the time, so that we can able to use, even if the site is offline. Okay, that is when you cannot reach the site, but you should always able to get hold of your copies. Recovery procedure would be required to reload and reboot the systems, and although commercial database can do this by rollback, save points, etc. Okay, so examples of recovery systems are like rollback, read more into that, and save points, and rebooting of the systems, or reloading, right, or backing up. Okay, they are all within this sentence, so I need you to look up at those recovery systems. Okay, looking at the structure, behavior, and interaction diagrams, you need to understand the diagrams that we need. The structure of the changes, the behavior of the changes, and interactions of the changes. Okay, and then there is the definition. Like, for example, structure diagrams emphasize the things that must be present in the system being modeled, and they are also used to extensively in documenting the software architecture of software systems. That's how we should understand the structure diagrams. And as for the behavior diagrams, these ones emphasize on what must happen in the system being modeled, and then it also looks at behavior diagrams, which illustrates the behavior of a system. Example, how is the system behaving? Is it behaving in the actual way our intentions were when we created the system, or it is started to get out of line? Okay, and then they are actually now used extensively to describe the functionality of system softwares. Now that is how we need to understand about the behavior diagrams. Now, looking at the interaction diagrams, these are subset of a behavior diagrams which emphasize on the flow of control and data among the things in the system being modeled. Okay, so basically this one's a subset of a behavior, and then it looks into the flow of data, how the data is flowing. Because when we are looking at the data flowing, we look at, like, for example, if you are looking at the ATMs are also systems. Let's say when you put in the PIN of your bob card, the data should flow to the point of up to the part of where you are withdrawing the money. The whole process of from the PIN entering to the part of selecting the amount of money you are going to select, or the type of banking type you are going to use, whether you are going to transfer, whether you are going to send money, whether you are going to withdraw, that whole process of data, that's what we call data flow, right? So now we need to understand how the data interact within the system. And then, mind you, systems differ. They do differ, and then but the concept of data flow is the same, but it also now depends on how logically it was implemented. Okay, now that's what we have covered within managing change. Let's just preview what we have looked at. We need to understand the system development life cycle. It is steps. We understand it that it has 5 steps. Okay, and then we need to understand how it is used, and then we also need to understand other different types of methods that are used when we are developing a system. For example, we have extreme programming, we have agile programming, and so forth. Okay, Looking into information security and data protections, we need to understand how we can secure our information, and then what methods can we use to protect our data, such as data authentication through cryptography, and then we can also protect our data through creating of passwords and then usernames, etc. Okay, looking into system investigations, here you need to know 4 types of methods of system investigation, which are like interviews, observations, questionnaires, and then records, sampling records. Okay, and then we also now need to understand information system implementation. How are these done during implementation of our system? Okay, we also need to understand the concept of what is a managing change. What kind of changes are likely to come up when we are adopting in new systems, or we are trying to adapt in new development? What are the most likely changes can appear, especially among employees? How are they likely to behave, and how they react to it? Will they like the system, or will they embrace it, or will they prefer the old system instead? So now those are the things we need to look at, and I believe we have discussed this well more on the previous notes that we have looked at. Okay, looking at the recovery systems, this is very much important because systems are implemented by human beings, and then they are all to go defaultly, mistakenly, by errors. We always have errors, like we have always a running time error, whereby systems can just aberrantly just disappear or not run at all. So now how can we have what type of a recovery systems that we can have? We looked at a backup. We should always know how to back up. And then we have looked at different methods as it was mentioned then. Okay, looking at the structure, behavior, and interaction diagrams. Within these 3 diagrams, understand how we can differentiate them. Okay, the behaviors of how the system is ought to behave. In the interactions, how is data, because the flow of data should always interact in a certain way, and then the whole processing of the data flow, and then how is the data going to be structured. Now, those are some of the changes that we can deal with in the managing change. Okay, it seems like it has a lot of things to take in, and then a lot of things to understand. But I believe if you follow my previous notes and then other extra notes from internet, don't forget that Google is your friend, and you should always able to look more into different types of things, and then compare, and then see how you understand this. And what is important is just how you can incorporate in the understanding of managing change when it comes to systems. Otherwise, from my part, I'm wishing you all the best, and I'm hoping for the best result.